What is going on, everybody? What's going on, everybody? My name is Randy. You're watching the Randy Talks Mess channel, and I'm joined by Dexter Henry here with New York Post Sports. This guy is amazing. I've been following him for a little bit. We didn't work exactly together, but we worked in the same type of
Yeah,
area. So this guy is a great guy, man. But how you doing, Dexter?
I'm good, man. Randy, it's good to see you. I miss seeing you at SNY. We used to see each other in the hallways all the time, talk about the
Yeah,
Mets.
yeah.
So I miss seeing you guys, my SNY family over there, man. But I'm glad to see you doing your thing with this show, and it's always good to talk Mets, man. Always good to talk some Mets baseball.
For sure. Let's get right into it here with some Mets baseball. So Mets 2025, the
Hmm.
season. What did you think of overall the season, how it went? Because there was a lot of pressure after going to the NLCS. You would think that a team would have a lot of pressure, and then you sign Juan Soto, you sign Frankie Montas, Griffin Canning, these moves after they signed Juan Soto. What did you think of the moves to sign a Griffin Canning, a Frankie Montas, Jose Siri? What was your what did you think about that?
That's a good question because I think so much gets put Randy on the move to sign Juan Soto, and obviously that's a great move. And a lot of teams would have loved Juan Soto, and the Mets got him. I I thought the moves to sign Griffin Canning, Frankie Montas, Jose Siri, the guys you just mentioned, it was David Stearns once again hoping that he could get some things done with some reclamation projects, right? And I think sometimes you go to the well one too many times. And I think Davis, particularly with the pitching, because Jose Siri, I think was fine because I was like, okay, he'll give them a defensive upgrade in center field. You thought him and Tyrone Taylor would platoon a lot there. It didn't work out that way due to health, obviously. But the pitching, I will say this: I was never a fan of the Frankie Montas signing. Um,
Oh, me either. Me either.
yeah, so you were not a fan of it either, right? Yeah.
No.
It's funny. I haven't met one Met fan that was like, "Hey, I like the Frankie Montas signing." I have not met that person. Um, I think we all felt suspect about it for good reason. You know what I mean? I think it was that okay. We've seen this guy pitch before in New York, across town with the Yankees, and that didn't go great. He has some ups and downs in Milwaukee, but I don't know if he could pitch here. Now, to be fair to Frankie Montas, he also then didn't start the season healthy, right? And so then he's rehabbing his way back. And even in the rehab starts, he didn't look good. He was getting shelled. Then he came up to the big leagues and got shelled. So I was never high on the Frankie Montas signing. I just didn't like him as a pitcher. I thought the Mets needed more in their pitching.
Mhm.
I did like the Clay Holmes signing. I want to be clear on that. I did like that, and that's looked to be a good signing. But I thought Stearns overall, I wish he had done a little bit more because what was funny is before the season started, I was like, I feel confident about the Mets hitting.
Mhm.
I didn't feel confident about their pitching because I was like, okay, you got Senga and unproven dudes, basically,
Yeah.
right? Now,
Yeah. I
Holmes,
mean, a lot of
Peterson,
unproven dudes.
yeah, Peterson, I thought could be solid, and Peterson was good for a half the season. Holmes, I think what the Mets got out of him, Mets fans should have rejoiced about. If you'd have told me Holmes would have pitched as deep as he did into the season, as well as he did, I would have signed for that in a heartbeat. Now Mania not being good, Montas being terrible, obviously hurts. I think what eventually did unfold in 2025 shows you they didn't do enough with pitching. They need to get themselves a bona fide ace. It's something I think they have to do this offseason.
Yeah, I
You
think I
can't
think
bank.
so too. I
Yeah, you
definitely.
can't bank on it, and you can't put too much on the kids. I love that they brought the kids up at the end of the year. I want to say that,
Mhm.
and I've said that on my show. I
Yeah.
love that, but at the same time, you can't go in the next season like that, Randy. It just, I just don't think it's going to be a good look for the
Yeah.
Mets if they do that. So it would look. I guess what I'm saying is the moves they made after Soto, they were mid, and the
Yeah.
results kind of
Yeah.
showed that. You know,
Definitely. I mean, to first of all, not make the playoffs, not even make the playoffs, and
right?
you had a chance to make the playoffs in the last game, and the Mets lost and the Reds lost. I mean, it can't get more sad than that when it comes to the New York Mets 2025 season. I just thought it was overall a big collapse of a season, a huge collapse. I mean, they were 45 and I believe 24,
Yep.
21 games over 500. And then June came and it was the opposite. Last year, June, they were the hottest team in all of baseball. This year, they were the worst team, one of the worst teams in all of baseball. They were like absolutely horrible. So the
Mm-hmm.
pitching, Griffin Canning, you seen guys like Clay Holmes, they were performing well. McGill was pitching really good in the beginning as well. It was a lot of guys that, Stearns looked like a genius for a second there for the first half a little bit. But it came down to earth. It came down to earth. I mean, McGill
Mm-hmm.
got injured. Griffin Canning got injured. And it didn't work out. And then the trade deadline, it's like the Mets were coasting and coasting and coasting. And then the
Mm-hmm.
trade deadline happened. And I mean, you get Tyler Rogers, which I feel like was a good pickup overall. You trade Drew Gilbert, but you got to give something to get something, right? So, and then you trade for Ryan Helsley, who I was very excited about the move,
Same.
but it didn't work out. It didn't work out. And then you traded for a guy, Cedric Mullins, who to me, Cedric Mullins just wasn't the right fit for this team. He wasn't the right fit for this team. And with these young players like a Ronnie Mauricio, like a Brett Beatty, a Mark
Mm-hmm.
Vientos, they need some playing time. And I felt like when you brought in Cedric Mullins, that playing time went away for Ronnie Mauricio. What did you think about overall that when with Ronnie Mauricio in that situation?
Mm-hmm.
Because this guy was, he was a young player, an important player, and I thought they were going to give him a chance. But when Cedric Mullins came, it's like he went to the back burner.
Yeah, you didn't see much of that because then, McNeil was playing a bit out in center field, and that was an experiment that went not as badly as I thought it would have. But look, Mullins was not good. Helsley was terrible. However, if I would have probably done all those moves over again, I love the Mets deadline. I can't go back and be fake about it now. At the
Wow.
time, I love the moves.
It
I was,
looked great. It
I
looked
thought,
great.
I thought Stearns had himself a great deadline,
Yeah.
and it ended up not being that. Now, look, Mauricio, it hurt, and then he didn't play a lot until the end. I think Mauricio is a talented player. He's got incredible bat speed. I still think he's got to get better at plate discipline. So there's room for him to still grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what the best position is for him because I think Beatty kind of solidified that third base spot right now. So now you're thinking about is he playing second for you? But is it him?
Yeah.
Is it Ronald Acuna
But
Jr.?
it's weird because
Mm-hmm.
Mark Vientos in 2024 had
Mm-hmm.
that year that it looked like, oh, this is the guy.
Yeah,
And
you
then
thought
Brett
so.
Beatty
Yep.
has a good year and he looks like, oh, this is the guy. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's tough. It's you got to see some consistency, but when you haven't seen a lot of consistency from Brett Beatty and Mark
Mm-hmm.
Vientos, it's really tough to just keep these kids and take a chance on
It
these.
is. I think Beatty though. I think what impressed me about Beatty this season that just passed, is that he went up and down a couple of times, and then he came back and he got it together. Where Vientos never really truly got into a groove in that he had that sophomore slump. And I just think the difference is Beatty's so much better in the field, that you trust him. It's not even close. So
Oh
I
yeah.
trust Beatty a little bit more because I didn't see things affect his defense, and I thought his hitting was solid overall throughout. Now he's got to do it again. That's just the
Yeah.
nature of sports. You got to show you can do it consistently. But I would think he has the inside track in first base. I don't know what the Mets do with Vientos. Are you going to make him your permanent DH? Is he going to split time there? It depends what happens with Pete, all of that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get to that. But
Yeah.
I think as far as Mauricio goes, just back to answer your question, Randy, I think with Mauricio, it's a lot of wait and see. He got hurt not getting the at-bats. Look, I get it. It was winning business. The Mets were trying to win, but Mullins was terrible. So,
Oh yeah, no.
Mullins was terrible, and
Was
they had
terrible.
limited options, like just limited options in center field. So,
Yeah.
what are you going to
Yeah.
do?
What's going on, Armand? What's going on? Big Frank. Hey Randy, it's Big Frank. Great stream. Awesome guest. Yeah, appreciate Dexter really
Big
being here.
Frank, what's up?
Awesome, man. And then you got said Ronnie only got called up because the offense was struggling and he
That's
was hitting
fair.
well.
That's
So
fair.
yeah, that's
Armand's
definitely
not
fair.
wrong on that. Armand's
Yeah.
not wrong. And listen, and then Mauricio cooled off, with the bat. That's gonna happen with a young player. I am very intrigued to see if Mauricio now, if he's 100% healthy in this offseason, has a full offseason going into spring training. I am intrigued to see what he could do next year because I do think the bat is he's really talented.
Yeah.
The discipline at the plate and watching pitches, I think, has got to get
Yeah.
better. But we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll
I'm
see.
personally a big fan of Ronnie
So
Mauricio,
you like
and I
Mauricio?
and I, and I think his ceiling is very, very high.
Hmm.
But he has a lot to work on. He has a lot
Yeah,
to work
I
on. He has
agree.
to hit better lefty wise. His play discipline has to get better. But I mean, you saw some development in the major leagues when it comes to Ronnie Mauricio because that's a guy that was chasing a lot, but then he was chasing less and he was talking to Juan Soto, he was talking to these guys. So
Hmm.
I'm hoping the best for the kid's future, man. I really am. And let's get into the coaching staff being fired. What did you
Ah,
think about that? Just the whole coaching staff, even Jeremy Hefner
that was
being
shocking.
fired. I mean, I thought that was very, very shocking, especially the fact that Jeremy Hefner has been here for some time.
The Hefner part shocked me because Hefner's been here for some time and he's had good results with his pitching staff. Like, there's no denying that. When I first heard it, Randy, I was like, yo, what are they doing? Because this came a couple days after obviously the collapse and everything ended. And I was actually texting with Anthony Rivera of the Subway to Shea podcast.
Oh
And
yeah, Anthony. Yeah,
I was texting with Anthony and I was like, hey man, what are they doing? What's going on? Anthony convinced me to change my mind because he made this really good point that he was like, look, Stearns and Mendoza haven't had their guys in here. And now the seat's a little bit warm for both of them. And they're gonna want to get all their guys in here in terms of coaches. And so it's time for them to get their guys in there for this regime. And so when I thought about it that way, I'm like, that makes sense. It
mm,
kind of makes sense as time to change, clean house. But also it is a message to look to the fans and say, look, hey, we're doing something. We're not just somebody always has to take the fall.
yeah.
The Hefner stuff shocked me of all the moves. I know they elected to keep Anton Richardson, but they're still working on a deal with him. So that'll be interesting. I think the Mets need to get Anton
Oh,
Richardson
I
back.
think they gotta get him. They
If
gotta
he
get him. This.
And good for Anton Richardson because he knows that he has all the leverage here. He's like, look at these guys. I had Juan Soto stealing 38 bases. I got all these guys with career highs of stolen bases, and he was such a good job as a first base coach. So they had to keep him. And I think they will come to a deal. I just think Anton Richardson knows it's time that you have to pay me a little bit more. And he is
Yeah,
like,
I mean, especially you got the approval from Juan Soto, who is their basically one of the main players, and
yeah,
he's going to be a big time player for the Mets in coming in the present, the future wise. This guy's going to be here for a long time. So you got the approval of Juan Soto. I mean, you're gonna get paid. Like I think they're gonna have to pay him,
he
and
got to. He's got.
I mean, if they don't, I don't think Juan Soto's gonna be happy. So
I don't think so either. And look, Antoine Richardson, and I'm sure I don't know who Antoine Richardson's agent is. They know that they are aware of this, and you have to use this leverage. And he look the results are the results, right? What he did. What I wasn't losing sleep over the hitting coaches going away. And now they've actually hired a new hitting coach and sticking within the organization, which is what I thought they would do.
yeah.
Um, I make it that they're getting their guys, and Anthony really convinced me on that, switched my mind around on that. And I think it only makes sense for Stearns and Mendoza
Mm,
to have their guys that they want to work with that fits into what they're doing, and everybody's on the same page. So I didn't look at it as a panic move, as more as this is
mm.
probably what eventually had to happen.
And
Hefner a
do
little shocking, and they got to get it right with the next guy for pitching.
Right, yeah,
But
I mean, Hefner
yeah,
was very respected and
very
around
respected.
the league. So it's interesting that they are moving away from Mr. Jeremy Hefner, but
Hmm.
they did get a hitting director of hitting development or whatever they want to call him, Jeff Albert, and
Yep,
also they have a new bench coach,
bench coach.
Kai Carrera. What do you think about those moves regarding those guys? And do you think that Carlos Mendoza is really approving of this? Do you think that Carlos Mendoza is like, oh yeah, okay, let's hire Kai Carrera? Or do you think that this is a David Stearns move? And we also heard that Mike Puma posted,
Yep.
I think he said that Cohen said that it's gonna be a short leash for Carlos Mendoza. I mean, if he doesn't perform, if the Mets don't perform, this guy is gonna be out the door.
That doesn't surprise me one bit. Shout out to my colleague Mike Puma for the reporting on that. Like, not to that point. I think more. I think Mendoza had some say in the bench coach. He's going to, because you're not going to want your manager to not have his right hand person next to him that he doesn't have a good relationship. A lot of this stuff is relationship stuff, Randy, and that stuff matters. I think Stearns has a say in that, but I think most of that probably came down to Mendoza. I think the hitting coach is a Stearns call. Somebody that they think is going to work well in the organization, has worked well in the minors. I think particularly some of the results you saw with even Francisco Alvarez going down this year and then coming back up, I think that matters in this equation too. I think a lot of this stuff comes from the top down.
Yeah.
The Mets have long said they have plans of wanting to be the Dodgers East. They want to have sustainable success. It's something Mets fans have not seen. In my lifetime, the Mets have only made the playoffs in back-to-back years twice.
Yeah.
I'm 42 years old. That's crazy.
I'm 28. Same thing.
Right. That's crazy. Right. Like, that's insane. And Mets fans, I think, would like to see that. Obviously, Mets fans want to win a world championship. But you would like to see, hey, do we have a shot at this year after year, the way you've seen with the Braves for most of their time? Even the Phillies in the stretch they're in right now. The Dodgers, clearly, right? We know across town with the Yankees, their sustained success, which has been ridiculous.
For sure.
I think fans would like to see that, and I think Stearns has his vision on that, and the people that he wants in there. That's why I wasn't surprised with a hitting coach they stayed internally. It wouldn't surprise me if a pitching coach they stay internally too. That wouldn't shock me either.
Yeah.
I think how they've done things, how they built the pitching lab, how they're looking to develop players, they have their way. But to the point that you were making, that Mike Puma also reported on, my colleague, look, let's say first 25 games of the season, let's say the Mets are 10-15. That is not good for Carlos Mendoza. I think Carlos Mendoza is a good manager, though. I want to say that. I think Carlos Mendoza is a good manager. I don't think he forgot how to manage from 2024 to 2025. I don't think all that whatsoever, but I do think the seat's warm, and I think the seat could get hot if they're off to a slow start. Fans are also not going to have the patience for a slow start next year.
No.
There's going to be no patience for that. No.
There is no patience for that at all.
No.
And I mean, I want to get into our next topic.
Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding that, and that is Pete Alonso and his free agency. This is a guy that, to me, I think that the Mets need back, but I don't think that they can afford to wait so long for Pete Alonso. Like,
what's waiting long in your opinion? Like, what's the point where you get nervous?
Because I mean, if you have to make so many moves, like you have to get pitchers in this game, you have to probably sign back Edwin Diaz, and to me, I would want this done by the winter meetings.
That's
like
fair.
If possible. Like I personally think that this Pete Alonso negotiations, you saw it last year with a Cohen. He was pissed off in the Fan Fest. He wasn't happy with it.
No.
So I think when it comes to that, like this guy needs to be back with this team, and maybe he won't be. See, that's something that the Mets fans got to prepare for as well. But I'm hoping that he will come back. But I'm not signing this guy. I don't want the Mets to sign this guy for a 7 years plus contract. I just don't feel like Pete Alonso. There's a lot of issues with the DH. You got Brenton Nimmo. You got Soto, who's not the greatest fielder. It's a lot to think about, really. So, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that Pete Alonso, the negotiations, do you think that they need to get it done right away? Do you think that it's going to take some time? How do you feel about it? And how do you feel about it?
So, in terms of the time, I think it's going to take a little longer than Mets fans like. I think if it gets done at the winter meetings, you should be jumping for joy. However, we're dealing with Scott Boras here. And we're dealing with Scott Boras with a 31-year-old first baseman who has had some decline defensively, who does have all the leverage here, though. That's the key. And that's why I think it's going to take a little bit of time. Unless Steve Cohen approaches like, look, man, I know what you want. The reports come out. My colleague Mike Puma reported last week, Pete Alonso's looking for a 7-year deal. Now, a lot of us can be looking for a lot of things. That does not mean we're going to get it, right? I wouldn't give him a 7-year deal, personally. I don't know what the hard line is for Cohen and company. I don't know what the hard line is. Maybe they're like, hey, our line is 5. That would be my line, me personally. I will pay you $30 to $32 million a year, even if you want in that range for 5 years. I'll give you 5 for 150.
Yeah, I think that range is probably what I would probably give him. 5 for 550, for 5 for 150.
I'd love to probably throw in a team option after the 4th year, but he's going to try to get as much guaranteed money as he can. He's going to look, his argument is going to be like, I'm the team's franchise leader in home runs. And that's where he has the Mets over the barrel a little bit. It's a bad look if you let this homegrown talent, who's your franchise leader in home runs, walk and all this stuff. But I think the Mets do have to have a line. I think they will have a line. 7's too much. I was talking with a friend of mine who's a Mets fan. He was like, 5 is too much. I don't even know if I want to go to 5. Right. And I get the trepidation for a first baseman as aging, as I said, decline defensively. I think it gets done, though. I think both sides know they need each other, but Scott Boras is going to use leverage. He's going to use other teams. But I understand where you're coming from, Randy, because I feel like if you're a Mets fan, you're like, look, I want to get this wrapped up as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But he's going to always try to squeeze out, as he should. This is business. I never get mad at that. He's going to try to get an extra year. He's going to try to get more money. Both sides are going to try to come. The problem is the Mets had all the leverage last season, but this offseason, Pete Alonso has all the leverage here. And I think eventually he gets somewhere.
He helped himself out having a really good year.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I think he gets a 5-year deal. And maybe the Mets even have to pay him a little bit more than that. Maybe they'll like, okay, we'll go 5 and give him 35 annual, average value on it. Maybe they'll do that. Be like, hey, we'll give you a little bit of money. We'll only give you a little bit more money, but we're not willing to give you a 7. No thanks. If he's not budging on 7, and I get it, Mets fans are gonna hear this and think I'm crazy. I might have to say bye.
No, I mean, listen, I don't think you're crazy. I don't think you're crazy when it comes to that, because listen, if they can't come to an agreement and they can't come to an agreement, it is what it is. At this point, like, it's business. And if we can't come into an agreement, we got to go do some other things. We got to get a pitcher. We got to make a trade. We got to look for, we got to really focus on our team for the next year. This is not the Pete Alonso show. I'm sorry. This is not we're going to wait forever for Pete Alonso. The Mets have so many holes to fill. Holes to fill. Yeah. And, I mean, Edwin Diaz. I mean, this is also another guy.
Bring back. That is a must bring back.
That to me, and I'm not comparing it to Mariano Rivera, but I think when it comes to Edwin Diaz, he is so important to the New York Mets. As important as he was for Mariano Rivera.
Yeah,
because that is one of the best closers in the game.
Yeah, I think he's the best closer in the game. He's coming off a great season. Edwin Diaz also has all the leverage. And I think you got to pay as Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz to me is more cut and dry. And that's one you got to get done quickly. That's more cut and dry. I don't see that one dragging out as long. I just don't.
And you remember was it 2020? I don't know. What was it? 2022, I believe, that they signed him to an extension like right away. Like it wasn't, that was their first move that they made. So I thought that was like, okay, we want this guy to stay on this team. And we're not letting him talk to really other teams. We're not going to let him go and talk to other teams. Now, I don't feel that they feel that way about Pete Alonso. I just don't feel that way. I think they're going to, he's going to talk to other teams, but realistically, how many suitors do you think Pete Alonso's going to have, Dexter? Because I think the Giants, they have their best prospect, which is a first baseman. The
Mm-hmm.
Cubs have Michael Bush.
Yep.
And they're about to lose my Kyle Tucker. Maybe they're gonna try to sign him back, maybe not. But you got Michael Bush, and then you got Boston, who I think
they're interesting.
That is a team that I feel like could be very much interested in Pete Alonso.
I can see that.
And the other teams, I don't think the Orioles or the Reds, I don't see them spending so much money, but maybe there could be suitors. I just don't. I would really have to see it. Like I really have to hear the reports because Toronto, they got Vladdy. So like, who do you think realistically is a suitor for Pete Alonso?
For me, it's Boston. For me, it's definitely Boston.
Yeah,
they definitely, I think, will play. I think they could be aggressive with him. To prime away, they want to improve their lineup. I think it's a lot of it is want to, Randy, right? Like how bad does a team want to really improve themselves?
Yeah,
and I that's the thing. Sometimes markets take shape in other ways that you don't realize. Like you said, Giants are now out the market. Cubs, those are teams also that were like fringe of contending. That you would think about in terms of doing that. I mean, I don't want to. You never want to count out the Yankees, depending on what happens with them with Bellinger and
yeah. That's interesting
Goldsmith.
because
It's interesting.
I think, yeah, I mean, the Yankees to me, you have Ben Rice, who
Yep.
is a very intriguing talent, but he's not that great defensively. So I don't know. I honestly, I don't. Maybe the Yankees could be a fit. That would be very that would be very weird, right? Seeing Pete Alonso in a Yankee uniform, but I mean, it could happen. It could happen.
The Red Sox is the team I'd watch out for. That I think would be aggressive. But
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
you'll
Armand
hear.
said maybe the Angels make a splash.
I
Could
mean,
be.
Artie Moreno does love to make a splash. He doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily those big splashes haven't worked out well for them, but he does love to make a splash. That is true. That is absolutely true.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Pete Alonso is a very important player to the New York Mets, but I just don't think that they can afford to wait that long. I just really don't.
Well,
Think.
here's this is what I'll tell everybody. And when it comes to trade season, when it comes to free agent season, I always like to call it lying season because everybody's
Yeah,
out here lying. And it's gonna be interesting to see how things are reported. Like, oh, the Mets, we get to Thanksgiving, it's like the Mets have offered Pete Alonso 5 years, $150 million. Let's just say they put that on the table. And then reports might come out that Pete Alonso's camp rejects that. They're looking for something. How things are leaked in the media is people should pay attention to that because it
yeah,
tells you a lot about which side is leaking it. Was it Pete Alonso's
yeah.
camp? Is
Was
the
it
Mets?
Boris's? Was it? Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Who's pushing it? Because who has something to gain for it? So if you
yeah,
come out and hear the Mets offer Pete Alonso 5 years, $150 million, and Pete Alonso turned it down, that's the Mets that put that out there. They wanted to be known that
yeah,
they made their offer, that they came out and gave them a fair offer. They're not being cheap here. The Mets don't want to look cheap. They don't want to look like, when another group of people own the
yeah.
team. They used to call the coupons, right? They don't want
And
to look that.
and I got a
So,
comment here about
yeah.
Murakami. Well, I
Ah.
mean, what do you remember? It was one of those games that David Stearns, I think when Pete Alonso actually broke the record. Murakami and David Stearns was watching Murakami in I believe Japan
Yeah.
or wherever it was. Yeah, it was over there. So he was like scouting, and Murakami's a guy that could be very intriguing, but that's a guy that to me reportedly doesn't hit high velocity that well. So that is a concern to me because the major league, you got guys that throw 99, 98, 97. I mean, so what do you think about Murakami and that Pete situation?
See, for me, I wouldn't be mad if they had an offseason where they ended up signing both of them and you say Pete's going to then split some time at DH, or I'm not opposed to that. But then I think what it comes down to with all that is what are you investing in both? I'm not even sure. I haven't looked this up what Murakami's expected to get on the open market with his transfer fee as well too. So like you got all that, the international transfer fee. So like I'm not exactly sure about that. But if you're telling me you want to look at, because I think the Mets do have to look at this. Somebody that maybe helps field a little better. You could then platoon with Pete at the DH.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing. It's also not a bad backup option. You know, if the Mets might say, if the Pete Alonso price is too much, they might want to say, okay, we're gonna go with Josh Bell, who I know is a free agent, right? And
Mhm.
maybe he's kind of a bridge first baseman for a couple of years. And now I see, Sanders here says they should sign Cody Bellinger for center field, which is an area they absolutely need to upgrade on.
Yeah.
And Murakami. I mean, I think what some fans like Sanders are saying here is there a way for us to spread this money out better to make this team better, evenly distributed, right? Like, I hear that. And maybe Sanders, as a Mets fan, you're not being as sentimental. Some people are gonna be really sentimental about this. And it's like,
Yeah,
Pete's
they
a
definitely
homegrown,
are.
Pete's a homegrown guy. He's a home run leader. You can't trade him away.
Yeah.
I mean, not trade him away. You can't not sign him.
I don't know if you
You,
ever been in Twitter Spaces or anything like that, but those Met fans in Twitter Spaces, if they hear Pete Alonso isn't gonna be signed back,
oh
they're
yeah,
gonna go crazy.
they're gonna go crazy. Yeah.
It's insane. Like it's
Here's the thing. It's I get all the sentimental stuff. I don't think it's a crazy idea if the price is too high and you decide not to do this and you decide to spend your money a little bit more judiciously or spread it around. I don't think that's a crazy idea. I think the
yeah,
Mets have to do what's best for them to get to their goal of being sustainable,
yeah.
have sustainable success, long term. I think that's the goal here.
But then you got the fans saying, "Oh, like you have Steve Cohen. You have the richest owner. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, except
why he can't sign him? Like what?"
I mean, he can, except it's not your money,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And there's value and investment in how far somebody's willing to go. And
Yeah,
I think everybody has a line on everything, and we just don't know what Steve Cohen's line is,
yeah,
right? Like, or what's the valuation that David Stearns has? Like, there's a
yeah.
point where they're willing to walk up and spend. I'm positive they've had these discussions already.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
FanFest, they were, David Stearns was talking, and he was talking about, Pete Alonso, and we might have to, go another route and use
yeah.
different players. And he was getting booed. He was getting booed by the Met fans at FanFest, and they let him hear it. They let him hear it. So I think, and then you saw Cohen, and Cohen's like, he's frustrated. He's frustrated. He wants to get it done. He wants to be a Met, but he's frustrated. Like we are frustrated as he's very frustrated. And we didn't see Cohen like that. And we haven't ever really seen Cohen
Mhm.
like that and that being that frustrated. So do you think Cohen is going to get more involved this offseason with Pete
Mm,
Alonso rather
mm.
than just Stearns?
That's a great question because I do think there could be an element of him being like, to what you said, let's say we get to the winter meetings where I think it could get done by then. I think there's an element of him being like, yo, come on, we got to get this done. Now, hey man, he's the one with the blank checkbook.
Yeah.
He's the one that's going to sign whatever he wants to sign. So, if your boss is telling you like, all right, you got to get this done, then you got to get this done. But the thing is, at what cost? I think the
Mm,
Mets don't want a situation where they show their hand too early. Um, that's opportunistic for Boris and Pete Alonso. Like
mm,
they want to see how desperate the Mets. Desperate's a strong word, but they want if in negotiations you want to. If you get a hint of desperation, you're like, okay, got him.
yeah.
Right? We could pounce on that, and I think they're going to look for that. But I do think Steve Cohen. The thing about Steve Cohen and being an owner and a Mets fan is that he's plugged in with the fan base. Um, he knows what the fans want. I think he knows the fans want Alonso back. I'm with you. The Mets fans in Twitter Spaces be doing too much sometimes with Pete Alonso stuff, but I think that he doesn't want this to drag out. He doesn't want this anywhere near like Christmas or
Oh
January,
no. Oh,
right? He doesn't
I
want
hope
this.
it doesn't. I hope it doesn't get to that point. I mean, as a fan, I hope it doesn't, because I think they got to do so much. They got to do so much. And I mean, we get a comment here from my guy, Master Flip. Mets need to hurry up and announce the GM.
Stop it.
Cough, Epler.
Stop. I was to Master Flip. I will say. Somebody asked me this the other day. I don't think the Mets. I believe Stearns when he says they're in no rush to hire GM, and I believe them.
Yeah.
It's something I wouldn't mind to see happen for the team, and I think they eventually will do. I just don't think they're in a rush. I actually don't think it's going to happen this offseason. I think if the Mets
Yeah.
announce a GM, it's going to be
No.
somewhere. I think it's likely after next season.
And
I don't think
I
it's
mean,
going to happen
he
this
said
offseason.
we're gonna need the perfect candidate, like the perfect candidate for the GM. So I don't think that a GM is gonna happen this offseason.
I
And
don't think so.
I don't know if David Stearns even wants that GM. I think David Stearns wants all the power, and I think David Stearns just wants to do his thing. I don't know. Maybe he does want a guy that he trusts for a GM. But he's not gonna get a guy like Mike Rizzo. He's not gonna get So I think when it comes to that, yeah, it's very very interesting. Let's get into our next thing here. And what do the Mets actually need going forward? What do the Mets need? What do you think overall the Mets need? I think the Mets need pitching really really bad, and the center fielder spot is a spot that I'm intrigued by
Mhm.
because you have a prospect of Carson Bench. And Carson Bench is one of your top prospects. He is literally, yeah, he's number 20 in all of the MLB prospects. So,
Yep.
what do you think about that? And would you go young? Would you sign a Bellinger? Like, what would overall you do if you was the GM?
First thing I do if I was a GM, I would get on the phone. I call Miami and ask them what they want for Sandy Alcantara. That's what I would do. Number one. He's got another year of major league control. I know the price has probably gone up on him a little bit. I'm willing to give up one of the young arms. You need a bona fide ace at the top of the rotation. We've seen this man do it. He pitched better down the stretch, coming off the Tommy John surgery. I think he's going to get healthier. I would go get Sandy Alcantara because I don't really
Mm.
think there's another better pitcher you can get on the market. If you want to get below that, would you go call up the Twins and ask what they want for Joe Ryan? Sure. I don't
Also,
think Joe
do you think
Ryan.
that's below Sandy Alcantara?
I think Sandy's stuff is higher end than him. Like Sandy
Okay.
Alcantara, when he's at his best, to me is like an A minus
Yeah.
A pitcher. I think Joe Ryan is more of like a B plus pitcher. You listen, if you get Joe Ryan, you could do worse than that. Like
Yeah.
that is not terrible. If the Mets went and got Joe Ryan, I think it'd be a good move for them.
Mhm.
Um, but I just like Sandy's stuff better. And I just think when he's back on his game, he can be elite. He's one of Cy Young. He's elite. Um,
Also to your point, Juan Soto has been on record of saying
mhm.
that he wants Sandy to be here as well. So
I
I think, I mean, who wouldn't? I mean,
Yeah,
who wouldn't?
I think he's a guy that when he's on top of his game, it bumps Senga down a notch. It gets everybody in line. It takes pressure off a guy like Nolan McLean, who I expect to be in the starting rotation next year. David Peterson. The Mets just didn't have that this year. A guy that could come in every fifth day and stop the bleeding. They did not have that. They need that. That is top of the list for me. Number
Yeah.
two is getting better defensively. And so, how do you do that? You got to upgrade center field. Ain't nobody trying to see no more Jeff McNeil in center field. So,
Oh,
in
no.
fact, I've said this. Look,
See,
I think it's probably time to move on from Jeff
yeah.
McNeil. I think it also could be time to have the conversation about moving on from Brandon Nimmo because Nimmo's limited in what he can do. I mean, I know the counting stats and the homers and the ribbies not bad and all that stuff. Strikes out a lot more now. Not good defensively, even in left field. The Mets got to get better defensively. You have Juan Soto right field, who's not a good defensive player. Could be average at best when he wants to be. Center field, the defense is lacking. Left field, the defense is lacking. So you got to get better with some more speed. The Mets had way too many errors last year, just overall. Even even Lindor did not have a good defensive year at shortstop.
Yeah. I
So
mean, do you think maybe that was because of the toe? I don't know. I
could be
don't know.
that.
Maybe it's because of his age. Man.
I think Lindor will bounce back and be fine. I think some of the toe had to do with it.
Yeah.
I just would I sign a Bellinger on a short term deal? Sure,
Oh, on
sure,
a short-term deal. He was
yeah,
signed on a short-term deal. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
If you get him for like 3 or
What
4,
about this? My guy, Master Flip, he said sign Luis Robert as a stopgap for Benj if the option is denied. What do you think about that, Luis Robert? Because
I
that's a guy that there was a lot of rumblings and there
about
was
the trade
talks
deadline.
about the Mets needing a center fielder.
I like Luis Robert, and I think the Mets wanted him. The price was just too high. Is everything that I heard? The price was just too high there. I think he's fine as a stopgap. I think to that point, I'm forgetting the name of the person who just popped up. The
Oh,
question,
Master Flip.
Master Flip.
Yeah, there you go.
I think to that point, it really depends on how quick the Mets think Carson Bench could be up here. When you hear stuff, it's like he could get a shot mid next season. It could be a season after that. You don't know. How soon do they think that he's ready? The Mets have shown on the Stearns a willingness to bring up kids, which I've liked.
Me too. I definitely love that.
And we saw that obviously this year with the pitchers. So if you're telling me, you know, it depends what you're signing Luis Robert for. If you sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, which he probably doesn't want, wants something a little longer. But if you're telling me there's a guy you get as a stopgap and you think Benj is going to be ready at some point next season, then I'm fine with that. I think who they're linked to in free agency will tell you a lot about what they think of Benj and how close he is. You're going to learn a lot about that. I'm fine with a stopgap. The person has to be defensively. I know nobody wants to see Cedric Mullins back. That's not going to happen.
Oh, no.
But they got to get a little bit more offense and defense out there at that position. They've really been hurting at that position the last couple of seasons.
Yeah. So so you think that they need someone that's proven, or would you give Benj the chance? Because Benj to me is a guy that he was drafted in 2024. He had a really good St. Lucie. He I believe he hit 300 in St. Lucie. He hit 300 in AA. He did struggle. In that bat. I think he had 100. What was it? 100 something at bats, but he hit like 158 in AAA. But there was an injury there, so. But that guy was flying through the system this year, flying.
That's why I think they're gonna really watch him spring training, and I think probably another year in AAA and see how he does. There's a world and you don't see Carson Bench till 2027. There's a world for that too. Wow. I just think it depends on how good he hits, how much he adjusts. We'll see. I mean, the Mets need somebody they believe in that position that can give him hitting, give him some speed, give him some defense. I'm not fine with that. I think whatever it is, I think Mets fans will be okay. They just want to know what they want. It's just like fans of any team. You want to know what the plan is. I want to see what the plan is and what you're trying to do with this team. Now, to be fair to David Stearns and Steve Cohen, I think they've been very transparent with the fan base. I think they do a great job of talking to the media and letting fans know what's going on. So I have a lot of respect for that. As somebody who works in the media, I think they've done a good job with that. And I think you'll see more of that going forward.
Yeah, no, I definitely think you will. But the Mets have so many overall exciting prospects when it comes to. They got Nolan McLean, they got Jonah Tong, they got Brandon Sproat. Now, those guys, you saw McLean. I mean, what did you think of McLean? Because I've never watched a pitcher like Nolan McLean before, and somebody said he was like Greg Maddux with velocity. I mean, what did you think of McLean overall, seeing him? Because that guy was wow.
I think you get wowed by what he could do in terms of the pitching and like the spin rate and all that stuff, which is amazing, right? Like, it's crazy. But I think for me with him, it was the mental toughness. He came in a situation where this guy was thrown into a playoff race and was mentally tough throughout. You know, I really like that by him. I was really, really impressed with the mental toughness where I'm like, okay, this guy is ready to pitch in the majors. Not just his stuff, it's how he's bounced back. It's how he pitched down the stretch. He was really good for the Mets. I mean, the Mets, what would they have been without him down the stretch? They probably wouldn't even have been in it to the last day. So I think for me, it was mental toughness I saw. That's something I look in young players all the time. And for me, that was really impressive. Beside the stuff, he's got the stuff. It's funny how things go because like Tong was the most heralded with his stuff and, you know, Tim Lincecum comparisons and all that stuff. And I still like Tong's stuff a lot. But he's got some work to do. And also Brandon Sproat still, I think it's a little more work to. McLean looks like the most ready of the three to start next year.
He's an athlete. Like he was a D1 quarterback. Like this guy has like moxie. He has the moxie. He's very composed on the mound. He's like, he looks like one of those aces on the mound when it comes to just his face and his attitude.
But see, that's the thing. That's the thing, Randy. I agree with everything you said there. And he looks like one of those aces on the mound. I couldn't agree with you more. but I don't think you need to put him in a situation in 2026 where he feels like he has to be the ace. I think
Yes.
for his development, it's better if he comes in knowing like, oh, I'm the 3 or 4 starter. But if I'm pitching like an ace, is dope. But
Yeah.
don't make him feel like he has to be the ace because I think that's just too much on his shoulders too soon. This is why I would say go get somebody like a Sandy Alcantara who can be the ace of the staff.
Do you think that they need two pitchers or just one pitcher? Do you think that they need? Yeah, I mean,
That's a
because
good
I
question.
think that they can trade for one. I don't know if they could trade for two pitchers, but there's also a Tariq Skubal that that's been a name that's been
Well,
kind of talked about a little bit.
well, a lot of
It's
people would love to have Tariq Skubal. A lot of people would love to have Tariq Skubal. It's going to be costly to get him. If
yeah.
he's available, would I do it? You're damn right. Look, if you have a chance to go get a guy who's been healthy, generational talent in him and pitching, you go do that. But if you can get Alcantara, you don't have to mortgage the farm too much. I think you're gonna have to part with one of these young arms if you go get Alcantara. You're absolutely gonna have to
Mm,
part with one of them. One of the three I just mentioned. There's no way you're getting them without it. I talked to somebody about something. They're like, "No, I'm not giving up the three." Well, I was like, "Well, you're not getting Alcantara. That's not happening."
yeah.
They're like, "Oh, well, I'll just give them Mauricio and Acuna," and I'm like, "Nah, man. They're gonna want a pitching prospect back. That's not happening. Like, no way."
Like Dexter, they have so many pitching I don't know if you know Jack Weniger. He's
Yeah,
also another guy. You got Jonathan Santucci.
Tucci.
That's a guy. And then there's Will Watson. There's RJ Gordon. There's a lot of names that maybe you could group maybe those two, one of those guys, and maybe it could happen. I mean,
Yeah, I think so, but I think you're gonna have to give up something to get him.
yeah.
But I mean, Scooble, I mean, you might have to give up a lot. You know what I mean to get him. But it's about how bad. You asked me, do they need one or two pitchers? I think you can always have more pitching. It'd be nice if they get two. I don't think they need to go get two aces. I think they can get one ace, and I think to trade for, and I think they could sign someone who's like a 4 starter. But they
Mm,
might actually be fine with just a trade because I think if you get somebody like Alcantara and you have Senga back and healthy, and you have Peterson and you have McLean and Clay Holmes, I think you can do all right with that. I think you're cooking with something. I'd probably like another starter for just depth purposes, but I think you could be all right with that as your 5. And can you sign another guy? I mean, you like to have another guy you trust in there, but yeah, I think you could be fine with that. But I think it all
yeah,
depends on who you get. If you get an ace and you bump everybody down a slot, now
yeah,
you're feeling a lot better. The key for me with that is despite getting an ace, it's a huge year for Kodai Senga. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to pitch at least like a number 2. I think Kodai Senga, but I will say this, Kodai Senga is actually, despite this year, is one of the best Mets signings in terms of a free agent pitcher in their history. He's been a really good pitcher. When he's pitched and been healthy, he's been really good. Just can't
mm,
stay healthy. So if he's healthy and gives you the innings and you have a
yeah,
1-2 up there with him and Alcantara, I'm just putting up there, I'm letting Mets fans dream a little bit. I
yeah,
think that bodes well for the team because I think Holmes will get better as a starter. I didn't even mention Minaya, which is crazy. I didn't even mention him in the rotation. So you
mm,
could you could see what happens with him. I think the Mets could be okay. They just need to go get an ace. That's the key. I don't
I,
think the pitching staff is that bad. They just need to go get an ace.
I'm not confident in Kodai Senga at really much the way I was before because I've seen
I think a lot of
decline
fans are
in
out on
his
him.
stuff. His fastball, he doesn't look like his fastball. He looks a little scared to throw his fastball. The
Mhm.
cutter doesn't look elite anymore. The forkball, they're not really chasing it. Even when he had a 1.47 ERA in the
Mhm.
beginning, his stuff didn't look dominant as it did the year before that. Like it to me, I feel like there's I don't know, like this guy is made out of glass a little bit. This guy
Uh-oh.
he needs to be perfect. Everything needs to be perfect with him.
I think
He
that's what's annoying the fan base. And then is,
Yeah,
this the adjustment to him pitching with 6 days rest and all
it's
that
a
stuff. I
lot.
think I think that's annoyed the fan base a lot. There's one Mets fan who follows me. She said, I think she always says to me, like, yeah, we need him out of here. He's a diva. Um, I don't know if it's that. I do think he's very particular about how he wants things. But I understand why it's annoying for the fan base because they're like, y'all, we just want to see you pitch. We know the talent's there. There has been a little bit off the fastball. You're right. People have not been chasing the ghost fork as much. It hasn't
And
been
those
as
are his
effective.
main. Those are his main pitches. Those
Right.
are
I
his
mean,
main.
and he's got to adjust to that because that's how it is in baseball. These are elite hitters in the world, and they
Yeah.
figure things out. And they're going to sit and wait on stuff and make you throw other pitches. So that's part of being a pitcher. You got to adjust to that because the tape's out on you. Everybody's watching it, right? But I still think Senga has enough stuff to be good. He just got to stay healthy because
Okay.
he was. I agree with you. It didn't look dominant in the beginning of the year, even when he pitched that 1.47 ERA. You're right about that.
Yeah.
But there was something in him to being able to. He got out a lot of jams. I will also acknowledge that. But
Yeah. I feel like he got
tightrope walk.
lucky a lot. He got lucky a lot.
He was doing some tightrope walking.
Yeah.
But I think he's got good enough stuff that I've seen in the seasons, but he's got to have a season where you put it together. You don't know. Now you're going to I don't know if I'm getting 25 starts out of Kodai Senga. I have no idea.
Even David Stern said I can't pencil in him for 30 starts. So I don't know if Kodai Senga is still on this team going forward. I don't. Maybe he does get traded like Armand said. I don't know.
I mean, that would be something to move on from him. And I think that would say a lot about what the Mets think of him and then what they're trying to do with their pitching later. Because if they trade him someplace where they think they can get some prospects and they're like, hey, we think Tong or Sproat is gonna eventually come up here at some point during the season, and they believe in those guys' development, maybe they'll start them in AAA and bring them up.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the Mets have a lot to evaluate, man, and look at they have a lot to evaluate, and I think it's fair to your point. I think it's fair to evaluate Senga and see if you want to tell me you're down on him and you want to sell low because I want to call it selling high. I understand where you're coming from on that. I do.
I'm also down on Manaya. I'm also down on Sean Manaya as well. That's a guy that he had bone spurs in his arm, and then it's like he now apparently there's talks about him not getting the surgery that was supposed to help him. So that's a concern to me when it comes to Sean Manaya, and I like Sean Manaya, but he's not a proven guy. He's not like a guy that like I can depend on for the next like seasons. I don't know. I feel like the arm angle, the league adjusted to the arm angle a little bit. I feel like I like him. I like him.
And I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because he wasn't healthy. But if he doesn't get I get people's aversion to surgery. If he doesn't get those loose bodies cleaned out his elbow, and we see the same thing again next year, you won't talk about the Mets fans being mad. I get, and I think the Mets signed him to a fair deal for what they signed him for last year, and he cashed in.
It was 75 for 3.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. That's fine for a pitcher of his caliber. Sean Manai is a good 3-4 starter when healthy. He's got to. If he wants to help his rotation, because I think that's the thing for the Mets. You can survive with maybe one guy that has a down year. It happens. But if you got like 2 in a rotation, you're screwed. The Mets can't have that going forward. And you have little margin for error when you don't have an ace. And last year when they did have an ace and 2 guys, if you want to count 3, if you want to count Montas. But I mean, I was never counting on Montas, so that's just me.
Oh, I was never counting on Montas. Yeah. I would never count on Montas to save my life.
Yeah, so I mean, some people might say that was a mistake in the first place by Stearns that he even counted on Montas, and I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think it was, man.
So you basically had 3 guys that you were unable to count on for a large portion of the season. David Peterson carried his team for the first half of the season.
That's another guy.
You got some amazing stuff out of Griffin Canning. They overachieved. You got to get an ace. That just all this comes back to my point. No matter how much you love the prospects, all this stuff. The Mets have some good prospects, and they supposedly have guys in the way. You talk about Carson Bench, all this other stuff.
You got to get an ace.
You got to go get an ace. That's all I'm saying. Got to go.
I would love an ace. I would love. This is what I would love for the Mets to do. I would love them to go get Sandy and go get Shane Bieber. That is a guy that I would like. So if you sign him to a contract, You could sign a guy through free agency, and then you could trade for one pitcher. That is what I want the Mets to do. What do you think about that? That'll be the last question.
That would be, Randy, a hell of an offseason. Hell of an offseason. If we're here talking in late December, and you tell me that's happened, they've traded for Alcantara, they've signed Shane Bieber, and they re-signed Pete Alonso. Now, there's some other stuff I'd probably like to see too. Tell me who's playing center field, left field, the whole nine. I wouldn't be mad at that, because if you get those two guys in your rotation, now I think it makes it easier to, if you want to move on from a Kodai Senga, if you want to move on from a Sean Manaea and eat some of the money, which Steve Cohen has shown the willingness to do. Here's what I like about Steve Cohen, what Mets fans should be encouraged. If something is a sunk cost, he's willing to move on and eat that money. And I think that's encouraging. So for all the fans out there that are like, hey, I'm done with Senga, Manaea, I don't know. If the Mets need to sell on that, take back some low-level prospect and pay most of the salary to whatever team they trade him for, they'll do that.
Yeah.
And in this case, if you can get high-quality talent like that, trading and signing for into your rotation, it's worth it to do that. You do that.
And I mean, to my guy, Master Flip, he said, no way I'm having two guys on the second year of Tommy John in the rotation. I mean, I get it, but man, like, Sandy contrast to me, he's coming off the Tommy John, and I think he's only going to get better. And Bieber, I like Bieber, man, and I think it's worth a risk, man.
These days, I don't worry much, because guys generally come back from the Tommy John and they're fine, and they're generally better in the second year than they are the first. So I'm not mad at it at all whatsoever. Like, I would do it. Like, is there some risk in that? Yeah, but that's risking any guy you pitch, and these guys can blow their arm out at any time. So,
good point.
So the young guys, a lot of these guys pitch a lot of innings, and it's a torque and everything. And we talk about this through the minors and college and all that. There's risk in anything. So it is what it is. But I would go for the high-end talent at the top of their rotation if you can, because that's what's going to propel the Mets. The Mets, I think the Mets will end up hitting better than they did last year, but like, you got to be suspect on the pitching right now. And that's fair. You got the pitching is sus. There's no doubt about it.
Hands down. You need pitchers. You need to make this team better, and it starts with pitching. And I really think if they don't sign a starting pitcher, I don't think they're going anywhere. And I like Brandon Sproat. I like these Jonah Tong, but Jonah Tong, to me, he didn't look ready. He's a young guy that didn't face a lot of adversity. And then you got Brandon Sproat and McLean. Those guys did face some adversity. So in college as well. So I like those guys, and I like Sproat. But listen, if you could get a Sandy and you could get a Shane Bieber, or you could get a Sandy and you get a Ranger Suarez, I mean, listen, some of those guys I would like to see in the rotation.
Yeah, and I last thing I'll say is I think the young guys, they got good. I think the experience they got was good, even though I think Tong looked a little overmatched at times, and relied too much on his fastball. I think him getting that experience down the stretch is good. It's what do those guys take from that? And outside of McLean, Tong and Sproat, what do they take from that? How do they work in the offseason? How do they get better? I think that's the thing to watch for them. If they're going to be part of this Mets future, we'll find out. But if the Mets are willing to give one up to go get an Alcantara, like, I keep bringing that name up, but I'm like, to me, he's a gettable guy. You got to go. You're a serious team. This is what I'll say about David Stearns. And I've said this on my show and other things. David Stearns, the seat's getting a little bit warm, because now you have Juan Soto. You've made these moves. Did it fairly get accelerated a bit more because the Mets have made the NLCS in 2024? Yes.
Yeah.
Fairly, unfairly, however you want to look at it. But David Stearns, this ain't Milwaukee, bro.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that he can wait for. It's not like in Milwaukee. You can't do this team like a small market GM. I think you got to make moves, and you got to make the right moves, and you got to take risk, but not take risk on a Griffin Canning, not take risk on a Frankie Montas. No, you got to sign guys that are proven and have a track record.
You can't always just take the small risks and think it's going to work out. Like, you got to swing big sometimes. You can't play it safe all the time. And I think David Stearns has done a good job in having value signings. And I still think he is great he has a great idea of him. Because I actually agree with his philosophy. I don't like overpaying pitchers
Yeah.
past, excuse me. I don't like overplaying pitchers past their prime years. Like if you're gonna sign him, you can sign like Alcantara, even though he'll be in the final year of his deal, he'll only be 26. If you want to sign him to a long-term deal, he's right in the prime of his career. He's already had Tommy John surgery. I'm fine with that. That's what you want to do. I think he's shown he's willing to spend on pitchers in the prime. The Mets were going to go and sign Yamamoto a couple years ago. They signed Senga when he was in his mid-20s. They're willing to
Yes.
spend when these guys are in the middle of right smack starting their prime. You
Yeah.
don't want to sign these pitchers late. You don't want to get tied into these long-term contracts for guys who are older. I think the Mets' philosophy on that, particularly around pitching, is the right one. But if you got a chance to go get a 26-year-old who can be an ace, you got to go do that, man.
You gotta go do that, man. Appreciate your time, Dexter, so much, man, for just
This was fun, man.
coming on the show. Hopefully you had a great time. We
I did.
appreciate it. We had 100 something in here as well. So great, man. Great, man. So you could follow you could say
yeah, anybody wants, they can follow me at D Henry TV. You can check out my Met show that I do with the New York Post Sports, straight out of Flushing. Also do a basketball show, New York Got Game, and the one on the Liberty called Liberty Lately. Definitely check those out. And I always like to say this when I come on shows, other podcasts like this with the Mets content creator. Love the Mets content creation community. Please support Randy and what he's doing. Randy's is a dope guy. I always like talking Mets with at SNY when we were in the building. And I like support independent journalism. Like independent journalism is where I got my start. I like to tell people, please support the content creators. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Donate if you can, because it's a lot of work in what Randy does to do good interviews and produce good content for the people. So I always like to say, please continue to support the independent content creators, independent journalists out there. And Randy, just keep doing the good work, brother. I'm proud to see you doing what you're doing. And anytime you want me back, I'm gonna come on, and I'm gonna have you on Straight Out of Flushing too. We got to get your voice on there, so we're
Yes,
gonna make
sir.
that
Yes,
happen.
sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, guys. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the stream. Dexter is amazing. Appreciate Dexter for being here. Appreciate you guys watching, taking the time out of your day to watch me and Dexter, man. I mean, we really appreciate it. Thank you, Armand. Great show. Appreciate it. Hopefully, everybody has a great day. Let's go, Mets. As always, I love you.
Peace.